Hello, artists. Happy Friday. Today, our picture is a picture of 1 point linear perspective. Perspective basically just means that it is the perspective. You are controlling the perspective of the viewer of your picture. And by doing that, we always do that. Um, when we're drawing, we kind of decide where things are going to be. We decide how the artist is going to look at it. But in this way, you're telling them that no matter where they stand to look at your picture, you are showing them that they are facing a certain direction, that they are, and where their eyes are focusing. And our picture today is a simple picture of 4 boxes. And what I mean by you're controlling their perspective, you're controlling that they are looking toward this side. So even if you look over here, if I move this picture here, you're still looking right down here. You can see that all these shapes are going toward this center. You are controlling the perspective of your viewer. And you do that by using what's called a perspective point. More about that in a little while. But I did draw a few clouds in here, give it a little bit of exciting interest. But this right here is my horizon line. And that means that that's sort of where the sky meets the ground. So this is a pretty simple drawing, but it looks pretty tricky, doesn't it? We'll break it down. But first, I want to reiterate a few things. Our objective today, the main objective, is to create 4 shapes and to demonstrate them in space, in 3-dimensional space, by using linear perspective. In order to do linear perspective, I'm going to need a straight edge, and I'll show you how to do that. I actually just did this with a piece of paper, okay? You don't need a ruler. It's helpful that you don't need a ruler. If you have one, that's great too. You don't need to waste a piece of paper. But so here we go. We're going to start with our picture, I'll remind you, in landscape. And we're going to make sure that you have a nice sharp pencil, a pencil sharpener. If you have one at, on the wall, that's fine too. You don't need it right with you. And I don't have an eraser on this pencil, so I did need a separate eraser. You are going to need your eraser. So the things you'll need for this are your paper in landscape, your straight edge, which we'll make out of a second sheet of paper, an eraser, a graphite pencil, and a pencil sharpener. Now, make sure your pencil's sharp. Mine is not. This is art, so we are going to anticipate our mistakes, respect the creative process, and try until we are satisfied. All right, let's just get started. Let's jump into this one. Okay, so the first thing I actually need is to make a ruler, or to make a straight edge. And so I'm going to take one of my pieces of paper and I'm going to fold it, like I said, hot dog, which means that it's folded the length of the paper this way, not hamburger, which would fold it in half to make a squat rectangle like a hamburger, but folded the long way so that in half, so that it makes like a hot dog. And it doesn't have to be a totally perfect fold, but I do make a nice crease at the edge. And then I'm going to fold it a second time over. And this is so that I get this double fold along this edge. So you can see, here's my double fold. It's a nice thick edge. I could do it yet another time, but I'm not going to need that for this project. And this double folded edge right here is the one that I'm going to use for my straight edge. So I'm going to take my paper, and anytime I need to use a straight edge to draw something, I will use it, you know, to draw my edge just like that. It'll give me a nice straight edge. So once you've got that, I'm going to flip my paper over. The first thing we're going to draw is a line across the page. So this line across the page, in order to make it straight, I'm going to match up this corner right here and this corner right here with my page. And once I do that, I can be pretty much assured that it's going to be straight-ish. Okay, and then once I've got that, I'm going to just draw a line straight across my page. And you can see it goes all the way from side to side. So I've got my paper, I'll back up a little bit so you can see. I've got my paper landscape style, and that line goes all the way across. Now, I'm going to draw 4 squares. I'm going to draw different sizes, squares or rectangles, and I'm going to draw that one in each corner. So if I imagined this divided into 4 quarters, I'm going to draw one. They're all going to be facing me, so I'm going to try really hard to get these nice and straight. And one way that I can do that, obviously, is to use my straight edge, but even that could be really difficult. So if I match it up to the corner right here, to the side, that could give me a nice straight. And I drew that line a little too long, so I'm going to just make sure that I'm just going to erase in here. Okay, so this is not quite perfect, but it's pretty good. So I have one down here. I'm going to do another one up here. And I'm actually just kind of eyeballing this. These lines. Okay, so I've got one on here, one here. I'm going to do kind of maybe I'll do a big one here. Doesn't feel very straight. You can see how it's not easy to draw this. I mean, I'm doing my best to watch the camera and to do this at the same time, and you can see how difficult that is. So I'm adjusting it. I'm adjusting it as I go, and I'm matching it up to lines that I can see on the paper. So I can see this. I'll show you. I can sort of see this edge, and so I'm trying to keep my pencil about the same distance from that edge to just kind of match it up. And again, here I'm looking at that as a guideline, and the rest of them I have to just kind of figure out. And so you can see that the bigger the squares, the harder it is. So maybe let's do a little one over here. I want to kind of set this one off a little bit. We'll just draw a nice teeny tiny square. Oop, even that's not easy. Look at that. But it's fine because we're using just a graphite pencil, which can easily be erased, and that is very forgiving. All right, so once you have your 4 shapes, 2 are going to be above this line, and 2 are going to be below, and then you'll have 2 on this half of the page and 2 on this half. So once you have these shapes, you're going to go somewhere toward the middle. So here we are, my fingers kind of meet in the middle. And I'm going to draw it just slightly above that line. I'm going to draw a teeny little dot. Okay, and now this dot is going to be my perspective point. And from this point on, I am going to draw a shape. I'm going to draw lines from each corner as long as that I can. Now I'm not going to draw through my shapes. So these shapes I'm going to consider solid. Okay? But I am going to, any line that I can, from any corner that I can, let's start here. I'm going to draw a line from the corner to my perspective point. So I'm going to draw it very lightly because I'm going to end up erasing most of this line. I'm going to draw from this corner and I'm going to draw from this corner. Now you're only going to be able to draw from 3 corners because the 4th corner is going to be kind of obscured. It's going to be a solid shape. So if I try to draw it from here, I'm going to have to draw on my own square, and I don't want to do that. But you can see what just happened. My square became very long, and it went out into space. And this is called perspective. So now I'm going to do the same for this shape. I'm going to very lightly draw from the 3 corners that I can. Whoops, I moved when I drew that one. Oh, and I don't know if that one worked so well. Okay. And now I'm going to draw the 2 from the bottom. Again, these ones only have 3. So in order to draw my line, I just want to show you, I match up one corner. I put my pencil where I'm going to start. And then I line up my straight edge. I press down pretty hard to hold it. And I line up my straight edge this way. And then I use this as a pivot point. And then I'm going to just edge up until I can barely see my dot. I still can see it. And then I lift my pencil up very lightly. And I just slide it up there. Now I have to hold down the straight edge pretty strong, because if I don't, it'll slide like you just saw it happen before. So here I put my pencil on the corner where I'm starting, and then I bump my straight edge up to it, and then head to the dot. Okay, and then I have 3 more lines to draw here. This one, I bump my straight edge up, and then I just move it, I just pivot it until I can just see my dot, and then I lift up, because I was doing that really strongly so that I could hold. I push down really strong so that I don't bump that. And then once I get my ruler set right where I want it to be, I hold it down tight, and then I with this hand, but my drawing hand then becomes very soft and light. So it's hard because your hands are doing 2 different things. So first, my drawing hand is strong. My ruler hand is loose and moves my ruler around to get it perfectly matched up to my dot. And then my ruler hand now, my straight edge hand becomes strong and my drawing hand becomes really light. So that's not an easy thing to do. Now, I don't want these shapes to be going all the way back. So I'm going to end them. And the way that I'm going to do that is, remember how I just was using these lines to help me draw the same, a matching edge. I just did that. I'm going to do the same thing right here. So this side starts with a line like this, and I'm going to draw another line that goes straight up and down a little bit further on that side. So that is now going to be a side. At this point right here, I just made a decision that this is the edge. I'm now going to draw a line on this side, and it's going to have to match up with this corner because it's going to be one shape. But now my line on this side is going to have to match with this one. So I'm going to do a straight across line, and this is hard. Okay, and so now I just made this shape right here. Now what I can do is any of these lines left over that go toward the dot right here for this shape, I can erase these. Okay, and now you see what I've done is I've made a box floating in space. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to focus on this side, and this side starts with a straight up and down line. I could make this really narrow and draw it here. I could make it very deep and draw it down here. Let's try to make it a little narrower. It doesn't matter where I choose to start. So I choose to start right about here, and then I just draw a line parallel to this one. You know, it's really difficult to just keep it the same distance all the way up and down. And then this, following those lines that I drew, becomes my new side. And then at this point where the two sides meet, I have a little dot here. And now I focus on this bottom side right here. And this bottom side has to meet at that corner, and the line has to match this one right here. So I'm going to draw a straight across line, just like this. And just like that, I have another shape. So anything beyond these two lines, I can erase. All right, now we're going to do our bottom shape here. Let's make this one pretty long. It's a squat shape as it is. So we're going to go like this. This line has to be straight across. It's kind of hard to guide it when you are so far away. So who knows how this is going to look exactly. And then where this side meets the other side, I have to make sure, and it helps me to just trace this feeling too with my pencil. Okay, and I got it. So now I have two sides there. And my very last shape, let's make this one kind of narrow. So I'm going to go a little bit back and just draw a line parallel to my square. And then where this side meets the other side, I am going to make sure there's a little dot, and then I'm going to draw a parallel side to this one. Okay, now we did some shading. So now I'm going to, while I erase these lines, I'm going to explain to you our next step. We did some shading of round objects. We did some shading of fruit and three-dimensional objects, and that's actually much harder. And little little Among Us characters. We did shading for those things, and that is actually much harder than doing shading for these. So right now that I've used I don't need my perspective point anymore. Okay, and now I have this line way out in the distance. I'm just gonna go over this line. And this line doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It was just sort of enough to give me a guideline. And this is actually called my horizon line. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But now I'm going to imagine that I have maybe a sun right here in that middle space. Okay? And the sun is just setting. And so everything, so this side and this side, these sides are all going to be sort of illuminated right here and right here. And the shadows are going to be in the front. Now, if I had put it here, it would make a completely different set of shadows, because this would be a dark side also. But since it's right in the middle, you can imagine that it can shine a little bit on this and this side. It's shining the most on the side that we're not seeing, actually. But the darkest side is going to be this side right here. And so for all of my shapes, I'm going to color this in. And this will be my shadow side. And I'm just using sort of like a sharp tip coloring method with my graphite, and I'm cross hatching to give it an even tone sort of all the way across. This is easier to accomplish with graphite than with colored pencil. So you guys who have been doing all your drawings should be good to go. So I'm going to color this one. I'm going to also color this one here. Notice that I am doing kind of careful coloring in the side. And then when I go crisscross like this, it really evens out the tone. And I'm taking my time. And then again, all of the sides that face me, that original shape that I first drew, is going to be my I just don't want to go over that side, so I'm kind of not going as strong as I could, but I will go a little bit darker over here, a little bit straighter and darker and stronger. And this cross-hatching method really works to give you a nice even tone. All right. So now I have my 4 shapes, and the thing that will make this look the most like a drawing that's real is that these sides, since they're far away, just these 2 sides, these underneath sides, I'm going to lightly color because they're facing down. They're just going to get a light color, not as dark as this. And these 2 top can get also a slightly just light color. All right, and now I have to assume that my shadow, remember this line? I'm just going to draw it out the other way. So if I want to, I can look at my perspective point, and I just am doing this a little bit. It doesn't have to be done perfectly, but I kind of estimate where that line will go, and this line is going to be straight with this. Now this line, this shadow, is going to be the darkest of all. So when I have my 2 lines, when I have my lines that match this up, so this line needs to be parallel with this one. Once I have this shadow, I'm going to color this the darkest right next to it, and then it can fade out as it moves back. Okay, so this shadow is going to come out this way, the same way the perspective point did, because my sun is actually on my perspective point. It would be different if my sun was somewhere else. So I'm just sort of lining this up a little bit, and I'm going to draw a little line out this way, and I'm going to line this corner up because I can still kind of see my perspective point. It doesn't have to be perfect, but then I'm going to draw my line right next to this one parallel. And if I make a mistake, it's easy to erase. And then I'm going to color this one in, but remember this is my darkest right here at the bottom. And then it can fade out a little bit lighter. Now these would also cast some kind of a shadow, but because they're not on the ground, we don't necessarily know where that shadow falls. So we're not even going to worry about drawing it. They're in space. Their shadow is diffused because they are up there. So that is basically our full drawing. You can add, a couple things if you'd like to this drawing, but you can add another shape here if you'd like. But I actually like the 4 shapes. It gives us sort of this feeling like we're walking toward the sun. You could actually probably draw some clouds, and the clouds also themselves would be shadowed. Their shadows would be on the top because the sun would be illuminating them from the bottom. So even with a graphite pencil, you could sort of draw this cloud-like shape, but leave it light on the bottom of it. And then you'd get the feeling, you can sort of get the feeling of that 3-dimensional cloud shape. And I'm just imagining that the light is sort of illuminating the clouds up here. And I think it's nice to have at least one cloud go off the page. I'm just using my finger to sort of, this cloud can be the one to go off the page. I'm just using my finger to sort of blend them in. And then, you know, that's pretty much it. You can color this in. You can get your colored pencils out and color maybe this in. This looks like sand to me. I mean, it might not be, but looks like sand. Maybe erase your lines a little better. I didn't totally clean this up. And that is your picture. Maybe draw some really pretty sunset radiation. And notice you have these lines. This is exactly where your the rays of the sun would be. So if you wanted to draw some sort of rays shining out, you could do that too. And then you could color in your sky with colored pencils and your ground with colored pencils. Maybe even color over the shapes and see what you get. There you go. I can't wait to see your drawings. I hope you guys enjoyed making your 3D perspective drawing. It will, if you do it a couple of times, if your first one didn't turn out so well, it's okay. This has taken me many years to figure out. Even when I learned it in college over and over again, it was it felt revolutionary. So if your first drawing didn't work out and you want to try a second one, it's worth it. You know, it's worth it. It feels gratifying to when you can finally get this picture to look just right. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend. And if you want to send me copies of your drawings, please do. Take care. Bye.